Hey gaming fans, so today's another Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. So this one I call it, well, my budget Dark World deck. Dark World Danger, I guess you want to also call it. Mainly because I used a lot of the structure deck, most of the structure deck, and a different structure deck, I think, for at least one other card anyways. So let's get to the deck. So for the extra deck, I'll just start with deck, because it's only the 3 cards. Again, you get this card in the structure deck that came out, the Dark World one. But this guy's pretty cool. Grapha Dragon, he requires Grapha Dragon Lord of the Dark World. His name is Grapha Dragon Overlord of the Dark World. And so he requires that one monster and a dark monster. So that's pretty easy to pull off. And when your opponent activates one monster effect or normal spell or trap card, while you have cards in your hand, you can activate this effect. The activated effect becomes your opponent discards one card. So basically it turns their card into the text that reads, your opponent discards one card, you being their opponent. So then you'd have to discard one card to activate your Dark World effect, and you pretty much cancel out their effect. And then you can only use the effect of this guy once per turn. If this fusion summon card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you could special summon one of your Grapha Dragon Lord of the Dark World that is banished or in your graveyard. Then each player with a hand discards one card. So you can see it really feeds into the discarding. So that's really what the Dark Worlds do. They're all about discarding. So let's get to the build. So I put one Parl Harmit the Dark World. I just thought that this was an interesting card to really only have it one. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target one Dark World monster in your graveyard except Parl himself. Special summon it to either field. Then, if this card was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon to either field one of your fiend monsters that is banished or in the hand or graveyard. So he does have an interesting effect, kind of a Monster Reborn effect, but also, you know, if he is discarded by your opponent's effect, or when you use your Grapha Dragon Overlord of Dark Worlds effect, and then you discard this, you can actually grab another card. So really cool. So I just threw it at one because it is kind of conditional. Then for the other ones, we have 3 of the Genta Gateman of the Dark World. I just found that this card's a little bit more fascinating. You can only special summon one of them once per turn. You could discard this card to the graveyard, add 1 Gates of the Dark World from your deck to your hand. If this card is banished and you control the Dark World card, you can special summon this card. So what's cool about this is not only do you get to grab your Gates of the Dark World, but then he becomes fodder for the Gates of the Dark World, and his effect will trigger, which will special summon him to the field. So kind of a cool combination there. Then I put 3 Brow, because I like to draw cards. I think this card used to be a little bit more of a favorite card for a lot of people, and they always played it in 3s. Than some 2. But I think I've seen a few builds now where people are only playing 1, mainly because of snow being around. But I like him in 3s. I mean, you get to pretty much make sure you get to draw cards. And again, his secondary effect, if you do pull this off, is to draw an extra card. So you draw 2 cards. Then, of course, we have 3 Snows. Again, you know, this is just one step better than the Brow, because when he gets discarded, you get to grab any card that has Dark World in its name. So most of your deck will qualify for this. And then, what's the other effect? You can, if this card is discarded from your hand to graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you could target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard and 1 Dark World card in your hand, in your deck to your hand. So it basically gives you that extra effect if he is discarded by your opponent. Obviously, if you're playing mirror matches or any other your opponent or this guy, again. Then we go to the Grapha. This was the original Grapha that came out a long time ago. The reason why people like playing Dark World in the first place, this guy is really cool. You can special summon this card from your graveyard by returning 1 Dark World monster you control from your hand, basically to your hand, except a copy of himself. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you could target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy that target. Then, if this card is discarded from your hand to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, look at 1 random card your opponent controls, and then if it was a monster, you could special summon it to your field. So He's got a lot of really cool effects, mainly just the ability to pitch and destroy. Really cool. Like if he gets discarded by a card effect, of course, not for a cost, you get to destroy one card, so he gets to deal with any threats. And his recursion effect is really cool too, which is also why I like to make sure I have enough, you know, level 4s or easy summons to make sure I can get him back to the field. Then we got this new guy that came with the structure deck, Rainbow Overking of the Dark World. Now originally I was going to plan on building a common charity Dark World deck, which I might still do, but I wouldn't be able to use these cards because they're not commons. So common charity format is when you play with only commons in the deck. So I'll probably still build that deck at some point. But this was also in your structure deck, so this guy's really cool. You can special summon this card from your graveyard by returning one level 7 or lower Dark World monster you control to the hand. So that's basically the same effect as Grapha, you just return to your hand. And then if this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you could add one level 5 or higher Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, except Rainbow of the Dark World. Then, if this card was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you could special summon one level 4 or lower Dark World monster from your deck or graveyard to either field. So, really cool. 3000 attack, easy to get on board. Searches out your Grapha stuff. Then, we're going to go to the danger cards. So I put in one danger Capybara. I can never pronounce that guy's name. So the thing I like about this didn't come in the Dark World structure deck, but I believe it did come in, I don't know if it's the Spellcaster one. There was it was what, the SDSA? I can't remember now. It was in another structure deck, so easy to get your hands on. Plus it was reprinted a few times. You can reveal this card from your hand. Your opponent randomly chooses one card from your entire hand. You discard the chosen card. Then if the discarded card was not himself, special summon one danger, whatever, from your hand. And if you do, draw one card. So again, more card drawing is good. Pretty much standard with all the danger cards. And then if this card is discarded, you can target one danger monster in your graveyard, except himself, and special summon it. So that's why I only included one, but the thing I like about him is he's also a dark and he's a fiend. So he really works well with the fiends in this deck and with the Gates of the Dark World. Then we got two of the Danger Mothmans. I just thought that this was like a really good one. He's got all the same stuff where you discard, and then of course, you know, discarding gets the Dark World effects off as well. So you can reveal this card from your hand. Your opponent randomly chooses one card from your entire hand, and if you discard the chosen card. So if you discard your Dark World cards, it's good. And then if it's not him, you get to draw one card. If the card is discarded, if this card is discarded, you can have both players draw one card, and then both players discard one card. So it's just kind of like Dark World dealing effect. You get to draw and then discard, so really cool. I mean, it sucks that your opponent gets two as well, but they had to balance out the card. And then, of course, two Danger Bigfoots. So this guy is the same idea. If this card is discarded, you could target one face-up card your opponent controls, destroy it. So I like him because he's just got the big beef. He's 3000 attack, pretty easy to get out, or he can destroy a card. So onto the spells, we got, of course, the 3 Dark World dealings. You know, again, great card. Sucks that your opponent also gets a card out of it, but at the same time, it's really great in accelerating your Dark World cards. You know, you draw the card and then you discard the card. You know, it does get you one less card off oftentimes, unless you're discarding Brow, because you have to use this, and then whatever you draw, you're discarding. So, you know, it's okay card. You don't want to play this in the mirror match, because then your opponent's going to get off their Dark World effects, and you're going to get in trouble, so you'd have to side that out with something. Of course, 3 Gates of the Dark World. The reason why I play 3 is because it is, again, it draws cards, and, you know, if you have one on the field and you use the effect, you can always play another one over top of it to use it again, because it's not a hard once per turn, so it doesn't say you can only use Gates of the Dark World effects once per turn. It just says you can only use this card's effect, so you can actually play it again if you have a second copy. Then we got one, I think I only got the one in here. Yeah, one Dark World Puppetry. I thought this was just another one of those fascinating cards. You could target up to 3 cards in any graveyard, banish them, then discard 1 fiend monster. During your main phase, except the turn this was sent to the graveyard, you could banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your banished fiend monsters, add it to the hand. So I like when they make cards like that allow you to kind of use it twice. Use it in your hand and then use it from the grave. And it can come in handy if you banish some certain cards from the graveyard. So really interesting card. Then I put in 3 Dark World Ascension. Again, this was also from the structure deck. So during your main phase, you can fusion summon 1 fiend fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing materials mentioned on it from the field or graveyard. So again, you're going to go after this guy, of course. That's pretty much the only target I have right now. And then if fusion summoning a Dark World monster, which you are, you can also discard monsters as materials. So that's really cool because you can discard some Dark World cards and get off their effects. And then during the main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand, then discard 1 Dark World monster. So again, more discarding, always great. I like the way they balanced out these cards and really made them like combo with the Dark World themes. Plus they're all searchable by snow. And then we got 3 Dark World Archives. I was playing around with whether I should have 2 or 3. During your main phase, you could discard 1 Dark World monster, and if you do, Dark World monsters you currently control gain attack equal to the level of the discarded monster had in the hand times 100. So it can give it a little bit of a good, attack boost until the end of turn. If a monster whose original type is Fiend is discarded, which you have a ton of, from your hand by the effect of a Dark World card or opponent's card effect, even during the damage step, you could discard 1 card, then draw 2 cards. So that's really a really cool effect there, that you get to draw cards if you have to discard. So really cool. And then I put in 2 Charge of the into the Dark World. I don't know. I was still debating on this card. It's kind of fun, and it can be kind of bricky sometimes. Target 1 level 4 or lower Fiend monster in your graveyard, special summon it, then discard 1 Fiend monster. So it kind of feeds into the whole thing of, get your little guys back to the field so you can bounce it back to bring your big guy up. But kind of a late game card, I think. You really have to have a setup going on. It would really suck to draw these in your opening hand, unless you got some discard power going on. Then for the traps, we have 1 Dark World Brainwashing. I just put in 1. It's a continuous trap. If you pull it out, you pull it out. When your opponent activates a monster effect and you have 3 or more cards in your hand, except during the damage step, you can target one Dark World monster in the field, return it to the hand, and if you do, the activated effect becomes your opponent randomly discards 1 card. So again, it's kind of like this effect. It turns their card into making you discard and kind of cancels out their effect. So that's really cool, and that's why I put in 1. Because it is conditional, you do need to have the cards in your hand to be able to activate it. And of course, the last one is Dark World Punishment. This is really just a Solemn Judgment style card. When a monster would be normals or special summon, well, more like Solemn Warning, I should say. You can negate that summon, and if you do, destroy that monster and then discard 1 Fiend monster. If a Dark World monster you control would be destroyed by a battle or by opponent's card effect, you could banish this card from your graveyard instead. That's the part I really liked about this, because you could just use Solemn Warnings, Solemn Judgments, or Solemn whatevers. I like this because first of all, it's searchable. Dark World, it's searchable, and second of all, getting that secondary effect off is really cool. Anyways, yeah, that was my build. I know this is a pretty simplified version. It's just one that I decided to work on just for ratios and figuring out what cards I would put in and put out. I originally wanted to try and build a pure dark danger deck, but I don't have a lot of the cards to pull it off right now, and it'd be quite expensive right now as far as shipping and all that stuff to order them online. So I don't know. I'm still debating on that. Anyways, let me know what you think. Throw some comments down below. I always like to hear what you have to say. Hope you subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.